my friends, welcome back. My name is Tamitha, if this is our first time together. We are up to Bread Baking 206 in our freshly milled grains baking series. We are making homemade English muffins with a blend of freshly milled grains, and I hope you love it. It's delicious. Let's do it. This recipe takes 2 days to make, so I want to make sure that you know to plan in advance. So if you need these for breakfast on Sunday morning for Eggs Benedict, or you're making egg sandwiches, you have to start on Friday. Okay? Now the other thing that's fantastic about these is that they freeze beautifully. The printable that I made for you, as always, includes the directions for freezing. It includes troubleshooting. It includes if you don't have the grains that I've used in this recipe. I try to make sure that I've set you up for success, and I hope that helps you. If you have any questions at all, please reach out. I do my very best to answer every question. If I miss it, and I really try not to, please send it one more time. It is unlikely I'll miss it twice. Okay, so what tools do we need? We need our grains. In this case, we're using hard white wheat, we're using Kamut, and we're using bread flour. Now you'll notice I very rarely, if ever, make a freshly milled grains recipe that doesn't include bread flour or all-purpose flour. That makes the difference in adding our structure, and it gives us the ability to have more air. When you're using 100% freshly milled grains, you're going to get a more dense result. That's just the way it is because the gluten development is, by its very nature, reduced. So if you absolutely want to make sure that you are at 100% freshly milled grains, I do provide those instructions for you. You will not have the exact same result that I have, but it will still be delicious. But if what you're trying to do is get your family to go from the Thomas's English muffins that we all grew up with, or many of us grew up with, and kind of move them towards something that's freshly milled and that's got a healthier profile for you, something like this will make a huge difference. You get wonderful flavor, you get really good texture, you've got lots of beneficial ingredients, you've got lots of beneficial nutrients in here, that's what I meant to say. But you also, because there is a bit of that bread flour, you do have that structure that will help you be more towards, land more towards the result that most of us are more familiar with. So I made this dough last night. So we're gonna hit the rewind button, and right here, I'm gonna put in how we made that dough and that entire process all the way up to our stretch and folds. Okay, so as always, when you're going to grind flour, the mill goes on first. We've got both our grains. That was the hard white. And there's our Kamut. Okay, now keep in mind, this recipe creates a very, very slack dough. It's going to be even a little surprising to you. It's meant to be that way. That's going to allow the steam to give us those nooks and crannies that we so desperately want in an English muffin. So we've got our bread flour, we've got our freshly milled flour. Mix that really well. Now we are not going to add our salt right now because we still have to do our ortolese, and that takes place without the addition of salt. So our ortolese in this recipe is going to be 20 minutes. So we've got our nice warm milk. We've got our instant yeast. Now I use instant yeast. If you are using active dry yeast, you do have to proof that before you start. Instant yeast can go right in, no proofing required. We've got our honey, which I am going to drop right in on top of my yeast. Super thick honey. Okay, let's just get that on there. There we go. We've got our melted butter. Now notice it's a little warm, so I put it away from our yeast. We do not want to damage our yeast. Our milk is warmed up to 105 degrees. That gives us the perfect temperature for activating our yeast, but not killing it. If you go above 110, you really do risk damaging your yeast. I like 105, and that is always my sweet spot. So now this dough, if you see, is almost like a batter. It is really slack. It's supposed to be. Now we have not yet added our salt. When you add salt, it does tighten the dough, which is one of the reasons autolyse exists, is because we are going to let this sit for 20 minutes, and it's going to allow our grains to hydrate. Once that has happened, then we will add our salt. So I'm going to cover this bowl. I'm going to let it rest for 20 minutes, and we'll be right back. Okay, so our 20 minutes is over, and you see, and you see how wet we still are. This is a very slack dough, and it's going to remain so. Please don't ignore the urge, if you feel it, to add a little bit more flour. Please don't. Now we've added our salt, and you just take a tablespoon more water. I know that seems counterintuitive when your dough is this wet. Please believe me, this works. Okay, so now with wet hands, because if your hands are not wet, the dough will stick to you like mad. You're going to just work in that salt. Make sure that you get every bit of it. There is no dry dough, no dry flour, and it's very important that every bit of your dough be equally seasoned. So you don't want any salt pockets. See, now down in the bottom here, we do have a little bit of dry. That's going to be absorbed because we are still so wet. Okay, so now we're going to do our very first stretch and fold. We've done this before, so we're just going to go ahead and do it again. Make sure I'm in this. We're going to pull, turn 90 degrees, when the dough starts to fight you, that's when you're done. So I've made it around 1 time. I'm at 1.5 now. I'm going to make it 2 full times, and then we're going to stop. Flip it over. I never leave it as a little flat blob in the bottom. I always give it a little bit of spine. I'm going to cover this back up, and we're going to set the timer for 30 minutes, and we'll be back, and we're going to repeat the stretch and fold process a total of 3 times. So that's going to be 90 minutes total. And here we are at the final 30 minutes. We're going to, the final stretch and fold. And look at all the gluten development that happened in 90 minutes. It is truly remarkable what time will do. Hydration and time do just great work. So as you see, once again, I always give it a nice spine. I don't leave it as a little random blob in the bottom of the bowl. That's just a habit I have. I just don't, I think this helps when you go to remove it from the bowl. It helps stop a lot of the degassing, which means letting all the air out that we're trying to build. We want those nooks and crannies, so we don't want to degas our dough. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover this. Make sure no air can get in because we don't want a crust on this at all. And then we're going to put this in the fridge, and it's going to chill for 12 to 24 hours. See you tomorrow. Okay, you're back. So we've got our dough. I just took it out of the refrigerator. We've got our cornmeal that we're going to be using to dust the bottom of our surface. This is what we're going to use to keep our English muffins from sticking. We've got our printable in case you need that. I think you should have it handy. We've got a scale because we want to try to get these to be as even as possible in their size. Now, you're going to laugh at me, but this is my box of English muffin rings. I've had this forever, and I store it in the box because they're not super rigid. And if I don't keep them in the box or in something, they would become all kinds of odd shapes. As it is, they're no longer as round as they used to be. These are at least 15, 20 years old. It could be more. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm older. I just realized I'm older than I thought I was about 2 minutes ago. I miss who I was 2 minutes ago. Okay, anyway, so we've got our scale, we've got our dough nice and cold. You want to work with this dough when it's cold. It is very slack, it is a very wet dough, so when you're working with it chilled, it tends to behave better. We need a bench knife, we've got that. We've got our homemade iced tea made with tea that we've got from outside. This is an herbal tea and a little bit of black tea. I love this stuff. And I can't stop drinking it. Okay, now this is a thermometer that tells you the temperature of a surface. Now we're going to be using this to check the temperature of our griddle. This particular griddle is made by Made In, no relation. They don't know I exist, but I will tell you I really, really like this griddle. However, if you have a stove like mine that doesn't have a bridge between the burners, I don't. I just have burners 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is a warming burner. If you have the same, it's not going to heat as evenly as it could. If we had one of those stoves with the bridge that connects the two burners, so you get one long burner, that would be ideal. I don't, so we're just going to live with it like we always have because that's life. But we want to make sure that we're running our temperature so it's not so hot, because we want to be between 300 and 325. If our temperature gets too high, we run the risk of over browning on the bottom and not being cooked through on the inside. And that is going to destroy the whole thing. So if you can get one of these, it's really handy. If not, you'll just have to watch your temperature. I've done this millions of times without one of these. You just have to kind of play with the temperature to make sure it's slow enough to give you a nice even bake, but not so fat, but not so high that you get a beautiful golden, but you're still wet on the inside. Okay, that's it. Let's cut, let's weigh, let's make English muffins. So you want to have your scale set to grams. We're going to put another bowl on top and hit tare. That brings our scale back to 0. Okay, very, very gently, we are going to try and move our dough without degassing it too much. We very, very, very gently want to get this dough moved from this bowl to this bowl. So I brought out a rounded bench scraper to help me release my dough from the bowl without breaking too many air bubbles. Now, will some break? Absolutely. We're not magicians, and we're not trying to be magicians. I don't know what that is, but let's get out. Okay, so now I'm very gently lifting our dough, nice and cold, right there. So our weight is 1,350 grams. We are going to divide 1,350 by 12, and that will give us the exact weight that we need each little dough ball to be, so that we end up with perfectly even, or as close as we can get, to perfectly even English muffins, final count 12. So each one of our English muffins, each one of our little dough balls needs to equal 112.5 grams. You start to get an eye for what size it should be when you're cutting. Now you take your extra pieces that you added and add them to the side, not the bottom. And we want to make sure that we leave room. We don't want them to stick to each other on the sheet pan. So we're just going to keep cutting off. You get closer and closer as you go. You will get closer. Like right there, I'm at 113. That's pretty close. There we go. Okay, so same thing. We form our little round so we don't get the cornmeal on the inside. And then very gently, we don't want to knock all the air out. We form our ball. It seals on the bottom. And we put our sweet little baby right on our tray. You can only fit 6 on a tray, so you're going to have to prepare 2 trays. Perfect. It starts to become kind of fun when you finally hit the mark. And the less little bitty cuts you have to add, the more fun it is. I don't know. It's just a silly little thing. But it becomes like a little point of pride if you can, the closer you can get without having to cut any extra bits. See how gentle, usually I'm just in there scraping, not this time. Because those little bubbles, we want to keep them. And here is our little bowl of cornmeal. And I just tap it in there. And this goes right onto our prepared tray. I'm just using a little bit of the tension from the board to help me round. When I start to really stick to the board, I just move a little bit of the cornmeal because we don't want to degas because we stuck to the board. And I just plopped it in there. Beautiful. Here we are. Now I have these all on here so I could get them into the video for you. I'm going to move these off, 6 on one tray, 6 on the other, so that they do not touch each other as they continue their final proof. Because these are going to get bigger, and if you degas them while you're trying to separate them, you're going to drag a bit of your dough if they stick together, and that's going to pop some of those bubbles that we are very much wanting. And be very liberal with the cornmeal, because these are going to behave almost like ball bearings. This is going to keep you from sticking to your board. This is going to keep you from sticking to your paper. Any opportunity to stop them from sticking, because anytime they stick, those are bubbles that are going to pop, and we don't want that. So just lift each one and drop cornmeal. Ah, see, that was going to stick on me. Right under there. These are so sticky. Oh, did it again. That's exactly why we make sure that underneath each one, we have a nice healthy amount of cornmeal. Okay, so I'm going to retray these. We're going to cover this very loosely with plastic. We don't want to form a crust. So we're going to So here we are. This is going to be our final proof. Now, remember, I am going to transfer these to another tray, so there's 6 on one, 6 on the other. The only reason I'm like this right now is so that it can fit in the camera. Okay, so please don't do what I'm doing, do what I say. I know that sounded terrible, but you know what I mean. I love you. You know I would never bark at you. Okay, the other thing we have here is our griddle. Now, if you don't have a griddle like this, for the first thing, you do not need to have a made-in fancy griddle. For the love of all that is holy, you do not. You have a griddle that you like, please use it. If you have a cast iron skillet that you love and it's well seasoned, so you're not going to have a sticking issue, please use it. I am not a fan of spending money unnecessarily. This was a gift from my husband, and I love it to bits. But would I go out and buy this for something like this? Absolutely not. We use it a lot for lots of things. So if you're in the market for a great griddle, I agree, this is an excellent griddle. But I will also tell you that it's expensive. And I know that there are other griddles that will do the job just fine. So the other thing we need is a fish spatula. Well, we're not making fish. Why do we need a fish spatula? We need a fish spatula because of how thin the front of a fish spatula is. And that will allow us to slip right underneath with causing as little friction as possible, making it so that we don't grab the bottom and tear it. So that's the reason for a fish spatula. It is so nice and thin. Okay, so we get your fish spatula ready, we get our grill ready. It is not heating yet, and this is going to go for 45 to 60 minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this off now so I can separate these before they go ahead and start to stick to each other and make me absolutely crazy. Wanted to share one more thing, and this is about the molds. These are the official English muffin molds. Will the world end if you do not use the official English muffin molds? It will not. The other thing you can do is use tuna cans. So you can take the top and the bottom off of a tuna can or anything that's that same shape. It could be a cat food can, who cares? Clean it, make sure that you're good. The problem you may have is that a sharp edge. So you want to be careful so you don't hurt yourself. But these were not expensive, and I've had them for a very, very long time. But I've had them for such a long time that I no longer know if the price has become absurd. So I'm going to actually check it. And if these are still a reasonable price, they're nice to have. They're also pretty nice to have if you're making sandwiches, egg sandwiches and things like that, because you can crack your egg in and you can make sure that your egg fits into your English muffin because they'll be the same size. But there's alternatives to that. So, but I will check it. I don't want to cause you to waste money for no reason. I simply will not. Okay, so I have those ready to go. Now, you may think, well, I'm making 12, so I need 12 rings. No, you don't. The most you can reasonably do at a time is 4 before you risk burning one or losing track. I mean, you can try to do 8 at a time, but that can get challenging because you want to make sure that they're golden but set. So to be perfectly honest with you, even after all these years, I still only make 4 at a time, which means I only need 4 rings. So we're not going to be wasting money we don't have to. And we're back. Now, everybody's back on the same tray so that it's easy to handle. So we can go from here to here. So I'm only going to do 4 at a time. So I put my little molds down, and I am preheating the griddle. Now you want to, so you can get an idea of what we're looking for here. These are super soft and airy. Let's move this so you can see it. They jiggle. I don't know if you can see that. They are so airy. They're like little puff balls of air. That's what we want. I'm heating. So we're going to go this way. Now these are going to cook on both sides for about 6 minutes. We want to have a cooling rack ready to take them off to. And I'm checking the temperature. We are currently at 211. We want to go up to 325. I'll be right back when we're at temperature. Okay, we are at temperature. So we are very gently going to lift them. Make sure there's plenty of cornmeal. We're not greasing the pan at all. The cornmeal is going to behave as our sticking agent. So now we made it to our temperature. I dropped the temperature again. And I'm just turning them around with my fingers very gently to make sure they will fit into my rings. Hey Siri, set timer, 5 minutes. I'm lowering the temperature, and I set the time for less than we need, because what we want to do is we want it just in case, because we're still adjusting our temperature. What's happened is I've already filled the ring. Just take a quick peek. Just make sure we're not burning. You will see a little bit of smoke. In my case, the entire griddle is hot, but I'm only using one part of it. It will be very uneven in the back, but I don't want the back cold because that'll give me a line right down the middle where it's just cold. I don't want that. And then I flip again. And when these are all the way cooked, what we're going to do is we're going to take them, we're going to put them onto a cooling rack, let them cool, and we're going to split them with a fork. Now that is very, very important. Fork splitting is the key. If you run a knife through them, you will ruin your nooks and crannies. So my timer went off. We just completed 5 minutes. These take about 10 to 12 total. So you're going to want to keep an eye on that temperature. In between batches, there's a bit of burnt cornmeal. We'll scrape that off, push it to the back, and keep going. The cornmeal isn't for flavor. It's literally just to behave as ball bearings. And the rings are only needed until the dough sets. And that helps keep them nice and round. Because if you don't use the rings, they can just kind of puff in an odd direction and you get some slight misshaping. Is it the end of the world? Absolutely not. I just like them very round. And as I told you, you just keep turning. And you'll start to notice that they become lighter as you move them because you're handling them a bit. You'll start to feel when a lot of that liquid has escaped and become steam, and they are not as heavy. There'll be a noticeable weight difference. You start to see a little bit too much smoke, drop the temperature. Now remember, when these are done, they're baked. But if you want to get that nice crispness, you still have to toast them. See, this one is still holding on. This one let go. They'll tell you when they're done with their rings. Not done with the ring. These have about 1 minute left and will be on the cooling rack. It's hard to resist eating them when they're this hot. Now, when they're fully baked, are they cooked through? Yes. Can you eat that? Sure. But it's not going to give you that English muffin that you're looking for unless you fork split and then toast it. So here we are off the heat. And now we're going to take ones that have been cooled the longest and we're going to poke with a fork going all the way around. And you want to poke through till you're pretty sure you're at the center, because this is how you're going to split open your English muffin, is with the fork. So you're going to go all the way around until you can feel it release. And we're just about there. I think I'm hanging up right about here. And there we are. Nooks and crannies. You're going to keep doing that. Make sure they're cool. So only the ones that are nice and cool. I'm left-handed, so I'm sorry, I might have been in your way. We're just going to keep going with the fork. And you're going to push through till you're pretty sure you're at the center. And you'll feel it when you're able to lift the top off the bottom. Now, if you're going to freeze these, which they freeze beautifully, you have to fork split them first. Please don't try to do this after they've been frozen, even defrosted. It's just not the same. It will not work. So once we have a little spot that's sticking, I see it in the middle there, we go in with the fork and release it. And we get the nooks and the crannies. And we're going to make sure that you're going into the last hole of the one you just finished. So you see where I'm going? And you're going to push in till you're hitting the center. And very gently pull it apart. Now when you toast that, it's perfection. All of these little pieces that are sticking up toast, and you get exactly what you get when you buy them in the store. So now when you're going to freeze them, you stack them just like this, and you fill up a tray, and you individually quick freeze them like we spoke about once before. You freeze the whole tray, and then after they've been frozen for at least an hour, you can wrap them up, you can put them in a bag where there's no air. We don't want anything to happen to them. We don't want them to absorb the smells of the freezer or anything like that. So you're going to make sure that there's no air in the packaging, and try and use them in a month. 3 weeks is even better. Can they last 3 months? Yes, but they're not as perfect as they are for that first month. So that was it. These are our homemade English muffins. I'm just going to stand here and finish this. And we are going to have Eggs Benedict tomorrow morning for breakfast. One of my very, very favorite things. And when I was thinking about that, I was thinking, well, I don't know for sure that everybody knows how to make hollandaise sauce. So I think we'll have to do a sauce series so that everybody can make all the good stuff that you'd get in restaurants, all those, because that's what makes the big difference in so many restaurants. It's the sauce. I guess we'll have to do a whole sauce series because sauces are one of my very favorite things to make. I love it. And I want to make sure if you're going to go through all this trouble, you can make the hollandaise, you can poach the eggs. We're even going to make homemade Canadian bacon. Stick around, we're going to have a ball. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy this. Please give it a try. Let me know what you think. What's the first thing you're going to make with your English muffins? Cup of coffee, toasted, cheese, sometimes the simplicity, chef's kiss. Thank you. I'll see you next time.